Hi everyone, my name is Yuliia Dziuba and I am Ukrainian lawyer and policymaker with over 7 years experience in the field of public policy and EU integration, a member of the board of Professional Government Association of Ukraine and of course Visegrad Insight fellow this year. Please listen to our conversation.
Welcome to the Visegrad Insight podcast.
We bring you global experts on the future of democracy, security, and economy.
The leading voices from Central Europe and on Central Europe.
Hosted by editors of Visegrad Insight.
Powered by Respublika Foundation from Warsaw, Poland.
It's Tuesday, 10th of March, 2026. My name is Wojciech Przybylski. I am editor-in-chief of Visegrad Insight, and I'm joined by Yuliia Dziuba from Kyiv, Ukraine, as a Resilient Futures Fellow at the Visegrad Insight Respublika Foundation program supported by the PZU Foundation. Hello, Yuliia.
Hi, Wojciech. It's nice to see you and thank you for having me today.
Our pleasure, indeed. Yuliia is joining us to discuss a Ukrainian reception and prospects in the ongoing diplomatic crisis between Hungary and Ukraine. At the end of January, Russians have bombed and damaged Druzhba pipeline, also known as a friendship pipeline that delivers Russian crude oil to Hungary and to Slovakia. By end of February, both countries were pressing Kyiv to resume oil transport, but Kyiv first said that the repairs are taking longer than expected, and the delay is for now unforeseen how long it will last, and provided, to my mind at least, a credible excuse saying that Russians continue to target energy facilities across all of the country, and any repair of those energy resource take time and sometimes cost life, something that Ukraine desperately tries to protect in an ongoing onslaught from Russia on Ukraine. Hungary and Slovakia pressed on. They declined Croats' offer of alternative supply route through Adriatic ports of Croatia. Mr. Šašnar, the Minister of Economy of Croatia, has credibly informed on a number of occasions both the Slovak and the Hungarian side, but also colleagues across Western Europe, across the West, in Europe and in the US, that Croats can deliver all the volumes needed for both economies at the same time. So roughly, I think we're talking about 15 billion of oil deliveries. The trouble for Mr. Orbán, at least, is that this would not be Russian oil, as he demanded that only Russian oil must be delivered to Hungary. He later blocked, or he sent his ambassador to block the EU agreed, and also Orbán confirmed earlier loan to Ukraine, 90 billion euro loan, that was approved by the European Council with Mr. Orbán present in the Council, but now being blocked, even though Hungary is not contributing anything to the loan and is not a guaranteeing party in the loan system. Also, Mr. Orbán said he will not have the 20th package of sanctions against Russia that would limit Russian ability to deliver oil to the ports across Europe. Now, this was more or less similar to repetitive dance Mr. Orbán dances with Ukraine. Nothing so serious. Serious indeed, but not as serious as things have escalated later. In the days to follow, in the last week, Mr. Zelenskyy, president of Ukraine, in response to the halt of the loan of the 90 billion that allow Ukraine sovereignty to continue, and also for the military effort to go on, he said that it is impossible to talk to a man who blocks these 90 billion. So he is considering to give the address of the person to the Ukrainian armed forces. So they call the person, namely Orbán, although Mr. Zelenskyy didn't say the name, and talk to him in the army way, which sounded like more or less a threat. Now, everybody was shocked by this statement, and Mr. Orbán immediately used it to fit in his campaign in Hungary, a campaign that for a long time already has been targeting Ukraine and has been smearing both President Zelenskyy in no better terms, let's say, and in a really derogatory language and imaginary that is fueled to the Hungarian public ahead of elections on the 12th of April. And Mr. Orbán said that he is not personally threatened, it's the whole of Hungary as a nation is being threatened, and of course escalated further. Again, words, but with concrete actions in terms of diplomatic hold-up on the support for Ukraine. When things escalated further, it's something unique. And I think this is where I'll start asking you questions. Yuliia, there was a convoy of a central bank of Ukraine coming with roughly 80 million euro. There were several bank employees of Ukraine transporting it in a regular marked car. And this convoy has been stopped by an anti-terrorist unit that responds directly to the Prime Minister of Hungary on the charges of essentially similar to mafia. It was also done in the light of cameras, the type of camera, the show that is oftentimes the type of the show that we see in the Russian TV when such operations are being demonstrated. The men were detained, held. The money was confiscated for the time being. Senior ministers in Mr. Orbán's cabinet, like Mr. Lazar, say they will hold the money until the pipe is open and the oil flows to Hungary. The men were released, but as we heard, they were severely mistreated with no ability to contact the lawyer, no ability to speak in Ukrainian, allegedly. They were demanded to speak in Russian, which is, of course, a psychological pressure on behalf of the Hungarians. Also, we should suppose that maybe Hungarians simply do not know Ukrainian. It is a possibility, but Hungarians unfortunately master Russian for a number of years already, at least in the top echelons of the power structure in Budapest. And all of that has been met with certain stoicism on behalf of Ukraine. So here's my question, Yuliia. How all of that is being received in Ukraine? In your opinion, also, and according to the data you might have in the general society, but also in the policy circles, and what may come out of this from the side of Ukraine? In other words, what's the end game also from the point of view of public authorities in Ukraine? Yuliia, floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Wojciech. That was really a long intro and a lot of information. And we should understand, first of all, that Ukraine now, this time, facing the full-scale invasion, yes? And we are living in times of war with under constant missile and drone attacks. So we are actually surviving, and we really need support from our international partners in this time. Because of this, many people in Ukraine see the dispute with Hungary not as a central issue, but rather than unfortunate political and tension happening at very sensitive moment for Ukraine. And at the same time, action you described, such a block in financial assistance for Ukraine, or the incident with Ukrainian convoy, this is all viewed as a serious concerns in Ukraine, of course. For many Ukrainians, it creates a perception that Hungary is willing to use a political pressure at the time when Ukraine is fighting a war not only about our own sovereignty, but also for European security and more broadly, I would say. Public opinion in Ukraine has generally remained quite same towards Hungary despite this tension, and we kind of expected that Hungary would do something like that, but I think it's important to emphasize that Ukraine still views Hungary as a EU and NATO member and therefore a part of broader European community that Ukraine hopes to join in the future. And despite all the emotions which you might see in the recent days from the president and the cabinet of ministries of Ukraine, I think that it's important to say that we are seeing Hungary as a potential partner, and we understand that it should be dialogue, yet not confrontation in this case. But however, also growing frustration in Ukrainian society when actions from the Budapest appear to undermine European unity or delay support for Ukraine urgently needs. And I would say in Ukrainian public debates, there are situations are often interpreted as simply as a bilateral disagreement, but also sometimes a part of larger geopolitical situation and dynamics, I would say, where Russian benefits wherever European solidarity weakens. That's basically what we've seen. And of course, I'm sure it will shape our relationship with Hungary and broader policy regarding this cooperation. But let's remember that the Mr. President Orbán visited Ukraine in 2022 and everything was kind of okay at that time. But what happened within these few years when Ukraine really need this kind of support from Hungary? Now we see that this is a potential clash in our interest in this time.
Orbán visited Ukraine before the war, and as the war started, he took actually a position that was unfriendly, let's say, on a number of points, but also verbally unfriendly towards Ukraine, and too often he's been taking a pro-Russian sentiment and pro-Russian side. But I value a lot your comments, and as I described, certain stoicism of the Ukrainian society, which makes it so strong, I think, and so indeed resilient. Let me add another question to that. There was a written intervention on behalf of the European Commission asking to resolve this and to tune down the diplomatic tone of the communication between the two countries, but also to allow for the oil delivery and Druzhba pipeline to be operational. How do you see this as how much these words and communication and pressure from European Commission weights, and how much Ukrainian side is willing to comply and to, prioritize restoration of the flow of oil?
Yeah, that's a very important question. And regarding we've seen from our European partners, we of course understand the importance of maintenance, but at the same time, for us, any European Commission intervention is very important, symbolically, but also politically, and even if it's immediate practical impact, but maybe limited. In case of Ukraine, as I mentioned before, we are facing now full-scale invasion, and we are facing the thousands of drones and missiles every week flying over all Ukraine, including the capital, Kyiv. So, first of all, I think that important to emphasize that Ukraine is not delaying anything because it's our fault, but because it's Russia invaded Ukraine and continue, let's say, threatening our safety and security. Regarding your question, first of all, the Commission plays the role of mediator, I think, in this situation where bilateral disputes risk affecting broader European interests, in this case, including Hungary interests, of course. But I think in this case, the issue is not only about the pipeline or energy dispute, but it touches EU unity and sanctions policy towards Russia and financial assistance to Ukraine, which is crucial to emphasize, yes. And when the Commission calls for de-escalation, or it signals the situation is not a simply bilateral matter, but something that affects the entire European Union. And second thing, that Commission message reflects the broader concerns in Brussels about maintaining European solidarity during the war. And I think it should continue, because we've basically seen that nothing changed in Ukraine since the beginning of invasion. We're still suffering from the same problems, even sometimes during this winter. There was a really hard period of time without heating system, electricity operating in Ukraine. So our EU partners and EU Commission should understand this as well. I think that EU already has invested significant political and financial resources in supporting Ukraine, and we're very thankful for that as Ukrainians, but also I think as politicians of Ukraine, they're also very thankful to see that kind of solidarity and support, and practical support, I would say. There is a strong interest in preventing internal disengagement from weakening this common position. At the same time, we should be realistic about institutional limits and limits of Ukraine in times of war, yes, because the European Commission, of course, can encourage the dialogue and apply political pressure, but in areas such as sanctions or financial decisions, member states still hold a significant power, and we understand it, and we've seen it before, especially when unanimity is required. So Mr. Orbán sometimes uses this for his own benefits, I believe, and this means that sometimes we need also to take some actions, yes, to counterpart it. And I understand that maybe for external observer it looks like conflict or something, but not. In this case, we are just protecting our own interest as well, as a country that facing huge challenges of security and safety.
So let me stop you here, Yuliia, because what you're trying to say in a very diplomatic tone is that you are expecting that Hungary and Mr. Orbán would block or try to block this 90 billion loan to Ukraine, and importantly, the sanctions, the 20th package, which is substantially different because it changes the type of sanctions, especially on the Russian tankers fleet, which has been the backdoor for Russia to trade oil and to continue profit from European side that funds the war that it also wants to stop. And expecting this move from Orbán, you would say that the leadership in Ukraine was not in a hurry. It was more of a political decision not to prioritize the Druzhba pipeline, anticipating this move to hold the cards in this very tense period. So in a way, it turns out Kyiv was right to do what it did.
It's interesting that you kind of emphasize that Ukraine is delaying and taking some pause in that, but I would say that this is because of what's going on in Ukraine as well. Yes, so we have our internal problems, and we've seen that Russia continuing invading, and we have a lot of issues with, let's say, defense and other problems regarding the war and protecting our land and our citizens. So I would not say that we delay, but as I mentioned, Ukraine operates in a very complex geopolitical environment as well. And we understand that some partners inside the EU have taken positions that are more hesitant or sometimes even obstructive when it comes to sanctions or financial support, such as our neighboring country. But I don't think that Ukraine is kind of pausing. We're basically doing what we can do in this time. And we understand that sometimes we should also, let's say, follow the game our neighbor playing. But I would not say this is something, I would say, against the interest of EU. This is basically about Ukraine's main strategic interest right now is ensuring the continued European support, financial, military, but also political support, and any action that would intentionally create this additional friction with the EU partners would run counter to that objective. That's important to say, and we should understand that if Orbán prioritizes his own national interest, and maybe not even national, his own interest, why would Ukraine not prioritize our own security and safety and our own interest in the time of polycrisis?
Exactly, and thanks for also mentioning this is not just one crisis, but indeed the points of pressure currently are global, in which Ukraine plays a central role, not just because it's been already for 4 years that it has been mercilessly attacked by Russians in a barbaric way.
Since 2014.
In 2014, the land grabs, and also hot conflict zones in Donbass, but at the scale of attacks on Ukrainian cities all over, with civilian casualties and attacking critical infrastructure, with the scale of number of things that Russians are doing, including kidnap of children and things that qualify as at least, some people simply say it, acts of genocide. You cannot stand by, and that's perfectly understood in most of Europe. I think you were very right to say this is also understood probably by Hungarians, and let's hope for majority of Hungarians this is understandable. But there is a particular group of people, including Mr. Orbán, who prioritize whatever interests they consider their own over the interests of the country and the interests of the joint European project, because clearly what he demands to have is not in the interest of his country as a country to be free and sovereign in the system of nations in Europe, because what he proposes is to be more dependent on exactly this genocidal, barbaric system of power that is coming from Moscow. Now, on the more optimistic note, I don't want to give false hopes, but the Prime Minister of Poland just today was making strong statements, arguing to other leaders of Europe that the decision on the EU funds has been already made. And as he has been a witness to Viktor Orbán agreeing to it, the decision now cannot be withheld, and he argues that the loan should be disbursed and it should go and flow to Ukraine as previously agreed. Never mind the technical attempt of a diplomatic veto Mr. Orbán has put forward. I think we don't know what will be the outcome of this proposal, of this interpretation of Mr. Tusk, but I would not seem, in my opinion, doesn't seem that he would throw these words lightly, and there is a larger diplomatic effort among European partners to actually approach this blockade, this backstop of the loan in a more creative political way, and honor the political decision already taken by Mr. Orbán, not to allow him to reverse the position and then say he didn't say what he said. Time will tell, but for now I wanted to thank you, Yuliia, and thank you for the explainer and also the analysis of Ukrainian position. That's good to hear, as we hear quite a lot, and there is quite a lot of attention on what Budapest has to say. So each time you can explain a Ukrainian point of view, it's of a great value, I believe, to our listeners and generally to the world. Yuliia Dziuba, Wojciech Przybylski, thank you for listening to us.
And that's all from this week's episode of the Visegrad Insight podcast, bringing you the leading voices from Central Europe and on Central Europe.
Make sure to subscribe, and we'll be in touch next week.